broadcasting from Studio 311 inside Washington and Lee University's Reed Hall. This is Sports Talk on the Rockbridge Report.
Welcome to the Rockbridge Report Sports Talk Show edition. In this show, we will do commentary in 4 segments. I'm Ryan Rach, host of Inside and Out, where we talk about everything basketball. At the other end of the desk is my co-host, Tyler Palisha. We will have 2 guests join us today, one D3 basketball player and one D1 basketball insider. First up is Ford Scott, a first-year forward on the Washington and Lee University men's basketball team. How are you doing today, Ford?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So first off, tell me about your first season as a general. What were your experiences as a new member on the team?
My first season as a general was definitely a challenging one, but a very formative one. Getting used to playing against tougher, bigger, more athletic players, more skilled players was definitely a challenge, but I benefited from it a lot. I think the biggest thing from this season for me was that I learned the really complicated offensive scheme that we have, and becoming comfortable in it was the biggest kind of step I made to being able to make a bigger impact on the floor.
What was your most memorable moment from the season?
I think we had a huge statement game in our win at number 15 Roanoke. They were number 15 at the time. We came out in a hostile environment and shot 70% from the three-point line in the first half, which is, it's almost unheard of. And then in the second half, our defense held them to 25% from the field. So I think after that, seeing us play like that and seeing that performance, I think we can beat any team in the nation.
So Ford, what are you looking forward to most for next season?
Next season, I'm looking to put on some weight in the weight room, get a lot of skills work in the gym in the summer before things start back up again. I think, after seeing us play this season and seeing where we're going right now in the off season, I think we're going to win the ODAC championship, and I'm looking forward to moving on past that, maybe even winning a national championship.
Thank you for coming on today, Ford. We wish you luck next season. Next, we will be bringing on college basketball insider Matt Gallagher to discuss the recent NCAA tournament.
Obviously, the biggest headlines from the NCAA tournament are St. Peter's run to the Elite Eight and Coach K and Duke reaching the Final Four in his final season of coaching. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, what a Cinderella story St. Peter's had. This year was the first time St. Peter's had made the big dance since 2011 when they were a 14 seed and lost to 3-seeded Purdue. This team had no previous NCAA tournament experience and had to win the MAC to gain a spot in the field. They had to win the MAC tournament over Iona, who were the regular season champions, who are coached by future Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino. They also became the first 15 seed to reach the Elite Eight. In 2013, Florida Gulf Coast, and in 2021, Oral Roberts were 15 seeds as well to reach the Sweet 16, but neither of those teams reached the Elite Eight.
So what propelled them on their run? Was it shooting, defense?
It was definitely a combination of both. Teams who make runs in the NCAA tournament tend to be top 25 in both defensive and offensive efficiency and KenPom's ratings, which break down how good teams are on each end of the court. St. Peter's, towards the end of the season, really focused on using their physicality and toughness on the defensive side of the court to hold off opponents. They had an important rim protector in Casey Nadefo, who averaged 2.7 blocks per game, along with only allowing 61.8 points per game, which ranked 19th in the country. They also shot the three-pointer really well to start off their Cinderella run in the tournament, shooting a hot 52% from beyond the arc versus a great Kentucky team. This mixture of quality play on both ends of the floor can brew for something special in March.
Duke had a great run this season with close wins over Michigan State and Texas Tech. They were lucky to avoid Gonzaga after Arkansas upset the Zags in the Sweet 16. What do you think led to Duke's success this season?
Duke once again reloaded this season with freshmen that will soon move on to the NBA, so talent was there again. But what allowed Duke to go on their run is their experience. They were not a team full of freshmen like they usually are. They had a second-team All-ACC performer in Wendell Moore Jr., ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and third-team All-ACC and sophomore center Mark Williams, as well as graduate student center Theo John, with sophomore sensation Jeremy Roach running the point. This group obviously has 2 lottery picks and arguably the best player in the draft in forward Paolo Banchero and guard AJ Griffin. This was a young and talented group as always, but their experience on this year's team was what allowed them to reach the Final Four.
So Matt, you mentioned Duke being more seasoned this year. So what type of style did they play? Were they more up-tempo, or did they like to slow it down in the half court?
Under Coach K in recent years, this program has been all about playing at one of the fastest tempos in college basketball, resulting in high-scoring games. They played at this high tempo because they have the players and skill to do it. They played a very similar tempo to NBA teams. Look at the guys they've had over the past several years. They've had guys like Kyrie Irving, Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett, Marvin Bagley, Wendell Carter Jr., and Jason Tatum, all of which were picked in the top 10 of their respective draft classes. The same can be said with the stars of this year's team, like Paolo Banchero, AJ Griffin, and Trevor Keels. This run and gun style was efficient for the Blue Devils this season and had them first in adjusted offensive efficiency. They were 45th in defensive adjusted efficiency, which is not bad, but 8 out of the last 9 national champions have been top 25 in both categories.
Now that Coach K has retired, what do you think his lasting impact will be on college basketball?
Yeah, he would definitely be remembered as the winningest coach of all time. He recorded 1,070 wins in 46 seasons as a head coach in his 5 years at Army and his 41 years at Duke. He also has 5 national championships under his belt with 13 Final Fours as well. He also has 15 ACC tournament championships and 13 ACC regular season titles. Krzyzewski coached 68 NBA draft picks, 42 which were drafted in the first round, while also coaching 37 All-Americans, 9 National Players of the Year, and in total 208 players. His success at Duke cannot be understated, but he will be remembered for his ability to be a competitor year in and year out.
So can you break down Duke's run to the Final Four and their loss to North Carolina? I mean, what a way to go out for Coach K. I mean, North Carolina has been a rival of Duke for many years, and to lose to them in the Final Four has got to be heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's crazy to think this was the first time these 2 blue blood rivals had met in the NCAA tournament, considering their past success. This rivalry has been so competitive over Coach K's tenure. He ended his career last Saturday night with an even record of 50-50 versus the Tar Heels. He has coached against 2 of the greatest coaches in college basketball history in Dean Smith and Roy Williams over the years in this rivalry. His final game was lost to first-year head coach and longtime UNC assistant and player Hubert Davis. The significance of this win for North Carolina is huge, while this loss for Duke marks the end of an era in Durham.
So I know former Blue Devils player and current assistant coach Jon Scheyer will be taking over as head coach next season. How will next season be different with Scheyer at the helm?
I don't really think there will be a drop-off for this program. Honestly, I feel like this past season, Scheyer took most of the responsibilities from Coach K. Scheyer has been in the program for such a long time that he understands how to run a successful program. Coming in next year, Duke has 5 players in the top 50 of the ESPN 100 rankings, and 3 of those players are even in the top 10. Coach K was not involved in their recruitment because he knew he would not be their coach. This early success on the recruiting trail for Scheyer is a great way to start off his career as a head coach. He obviously has to coach these players and let them find chemistry, but they should be in good shape with the skill they return from this season and the incoming class. The Blue Devils should be an ACC championship and national championship contender, as always, next year.
So now we want to hear about the champions. So after another crazy year of March Madness, the Kansas Jayhawks were able to take home the national title, the first one since 2008. They did so by erasing a 15-point halftime deficit. So what do you think led them to be able to overcome this deficit, which was actually it was the biggest deficit in NCAA tournament game history?
Yeah, I would bet that Kansas head coach Bill Self challenged his team at halftime to be tougher and more sound on the defensive end while playing fast on offense and getting good looks. And boy, did they respond by going on a 31-10 run to come out of the second half and take the lead from the struggling Tar Heels. Kansas was led by seniors O'Shea Abaji and David McCormick, who were both awarded first-team All-Tournament team. But the real game changer was senior Arizona State transfer Remy Martin. He went 3 from 3 from three-point range in the second half and played tenacious defense on UNC star guard Caleb Love. The game came down to the wire as Kansas turned the ball over on an inbounds play with a little under 3 seconds left when they were up 72-69. Carolina proceeded to inbound the ball by half court and lost after Caleb Love's three-point shot was short right before the final horn. What a great run by the Tar Heels, but the experienced Jayhawk bunch propelled them to victory.
Thanks for your insight, Matt. We'll see you next time on Inside and Out. Coming up next on the Rockbridge Report Sports Talk Show edition, you'll hear from Triple Threat. They'll go through all the different March Madness brackets they made and give a prediction on the Masters with a special guest. All that and more after the break.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report Sports Edition. I'm Emma Smith, and I'm here with Seamus and Steph, and we're Triple Threat. At the beginning of the month, we all created March Madness brackets and put them up against each other. Each of us had one real bracket and one themed bracket. We also included one randomly generated bracket. Let's first take a look at what went wrong with Steph's winning mascot bracket in last place.
Yep, unfortunately, that was my bracket, and the Duke Devils did not prevail. I'll start with an obvious mistake, though. I should have known that the Peacocks were going to show off against the Kentucky Wildcats in the first round, and from there, St. Peter's only kept on ruffling feathers with historic upsets.
They were the first 15 seed in NCAA history to make it to the Elite Eight. In fact, they ended up busting all our brackets, and I think a lot of people in the country had their brackets busted by the Peacocks, so there is a little bit of love-hate relationship between me and them right now.
Yeah, they sure did bust everyone's brackets. I also had the 1 seed Baylor Bears going to the Final Four, but they too were upset by 8 seed UNC in the Sweet 16. The Tar Heels not only took down the Bears, but also stepped all over the Peacocks to end their upset run.
After surprisingly defeating Baylor, I would have expected UNC to lose to UCLA, so I'm pretty shocked they made it all the way to the championship.
UNC and Duke competing for a spot in the championship game made for a pretty great game. They are one of the greatest rivalries in sports, and we were just so lucky to be able to witness this game. The atmosphere in New Orleans was unbelievable, I've heard. You know, these UNC Duke fans are very passionate, and this game meant a lot to them. So being able to come out on top, I think UNC is going to want to take this momentum into next season and look to put Duke away without Coach K. Give them a real lesson on how things have been going for the past, 20, 30 years for them. Emma, your real bracket ended up taking first place in our group. What were your thoughts on that?
Overall, I'm pretty pleased with my real bracket. I was pretty lucky that in the first round I picked the Richmond and Michigan upsets and correctly predicted 3 of the 9 8 seeds upsetting the 8s. Plus, I had Kansas and Villanova making it to the Final Four. Steph and Seamus, how did your real brackets end up?
Well, my dad always told me that second place was the first loser, so I guess that pretty much sums mine up. I will say after years of putting my faith into Kansas, I didn't think this one would be the one they pulled it off. Unfortunately, they took out my pick to win Villanova in the Final Four, beating them 81-65, and they went on to win it all by a narrow mark of just 3 points over UNC. The Jayhawks were down by 15 at the half, but they made a strong return, outscoring UNC by 18 in the second half, the biggest comeback in championship history.
None of us saw that coming, somehow. UNC Kansas was such a great finals game. I had a great time watching that. David McCormick, the senior leader for Kansas in the center, took over in the second half. He became such a dominant presence that there was really nothing UNC could do, not with Armando Bacot's leg, which he injured against Duke. So there was a lot that Kansas had going for them. In 2020, they were the first seed, and they were expected to make a great championship run, but because of COVID, March Madness was canceled, so this was really a redemption story for that team. And I know it's hard to root for the number ones, but I was proud of Kansas. Remy Martin, transfer from Arizona State, gets his title. It was a lot of great guys who deserved their shot. But of course, hindsight's 2020. I know my predictions from the start of the tournament weren't so insightful looking back, but that's what you get.
Seamus, your bracket based on which city had the best food ended up predicting some pretty big upsets in the first round.
Yeah, the first round of this year's NCAA tournament was a beatdown by the culinary favorites. You look at Memphis, they won. You look at Villanova and the Philly cheesesteak, they won. There was a lot of great food. LSU, I thought they were going to do a lot more. I'm from New Orleans myself and was expecting the po' boy, to take a little run at the championship, but you can't get everything that you ask for. I'd say one of the biggest upsets was South Bend, Indiana, taking over from Birmingham and Alabama. Go Irish, but there's a lot to be desired at South Bend in terms of food. Steph?
Yeah, and overall, the randomized bracket didn't do too well. It did have the Richmond Spiders winning in the first round and Villanova in the Final Four. So we rounded up some points there, but overall, not too great for the randomized one.
I was lucky my bracket, based off of team colors, took Villanova and Duke to the Final Four.
I guess we all know your favorite color must be blue, probably why you chose WNL. Listen, after a couple unbelievable upsets this season with great Cinderella story in St. Peter's, the Final Four still ended up being the 4 perennial blue bloods that we see each year. And Emma, with that, you ended up winning this year's tournament, so we'd like to give you a big congratulations, great rewards. If we had a net in the studio, we'd let you cut it down so you could feel what it's like to be a champion. All right.
And as a loser, I guess I'll accept shame as my punishment.
Up next, we'll be discussing this weekend's Masters tournament and put our own golf skills to the test.
Welcome back. With the 2022 Masters coming up this weekend, we'll be heading out into the field later in the segment to hear from Washington Lee women's golfer Antran Schellmeyer.
Tiger Woods announced he'll be competing in the upcoming Masters tournament after much debate this past week leading up to the tournament. Woods has won 5 Masters tournaments, second to Jack Nicklaus's all-time record of 6. The 2019 champion suffered from injuries to his right leg in a car accident outside of Los Angeles last year and was unsure if he would be able to play. He said his biggest concern is his long game and his ability to walk the course.
Tiger visited the course this past week for a very eventful practice round. I mean, there was about 2,000 to 3,000 fans watching him like a Sunday afternoon. It was really something unbelievable. I'm just wondering if our nation's idolization of Tiger is becoming too much. He's been so injured and so unpredictable that coming back from a back injury and a car crash and expecting himself to win the Masters seems almost ridiculous.
Have to agree with you, Seamus. In my opinion, his time is up. He'll always be one of the greats, and I'm personally looking forward to watching some of the younger guys step up on the green.
I agree.
I agree. That's what also a few people said only a few years ago when he surprised us with the 2019 Masters. I don't doubt he's past his time, but greats like Tiger will always make the headlines. Seamus, who do you have?
I have Jon Rahm. I love Jon Rahm. Spanish golfer, field favorite. He finished last year's Sunday with the best round of anyone. Since his late push, he's been absolutely dominant across the courses in the nation. He's got the #1 position player ranking in the PGA. I just think this is his year. He has the most second-place finishes of any golfer ever, so I'm really excited to see him. I'm also excited about Rory McIlroy. How about you guys?
Same as you. I have my eye on Rory McIlroy this tournament. He'll be playing to become one of just 6 golfers to win all 4 majors, the Golf Slam, and McIlroy has finished in the top 10 in 6 of the last 8 tournaments he's played in Augusta. But he just keeps cracking under the pressure of the coveted green jacket. It'll be interesting to see what he can pull together after missing the cut last year. Maybe flying under the radar will help him out a bit.
I couldn't agree more, Steph. McIlroy has such an unbelievable natural talent for this game that he has the ability to aim small and miss small, and that's something that is really going to benefit him in Augusta. If you take, for example, Bryson DeChambeau, who's a very talented golfer and an excellent golfer, I don't believe his style of play is going to match Augusta as well because he's better at taking that long approach, not a shotgun approach, but he's looking at a wider area. And McIlroy has such unbelievable precision and accuracy that I think Augusta really suits him. This field doesn't have any clear favorites this year, though, so it's going to be a really exciting weekend.
Rory's always been one of my favorites to watch, but I think you're right, Steph. He seems to just fall short when it comes to Augusta. I don't imagine this being the year where he pulls it off.
Coming up next, Emma will go head-to-head against a special guest in the studio. They'll put their putting skills to the test. But first, let's see what Emma learned when she went out to get some tips from Washington and Lee women's golfer Antran Schellmeyer last week.
We're here with Washington Lee women's golf player Antran Schellmeyer. She's going to show us a demo of how the pros do it. Congrats on a great season so far.
Thank you so much. The golf team's doing really good. Ever since we've been going out, we're breaking a bunch of records almost every single time, and we're really looking forward to our D1 tournament on Sunday.
I'm going to be going head-to-head in the studio against my other fellow anchors. What can you do to give me a leg up?
Well, first to start off, on all my golf balls, I like to have this alignment line that tells me if I'm putting the ball straight. So first, you have a putt, and I like to make sure that this line is aimed right at the hole. And then, when I think it is, I go next to it. I take a couple nice and smooth practice swings. And then when I'm ready, I'll get up to it, and then I'll hit it. Great shot. Another big tip that I have to make sure the ball goes straight is when you're at the ball, a lot of people don't think about how this has to be really nice and steady. So something I do is I make sure that my arms are against my torso and that they stay against my torso the entire time. That makes sure that this whole thing is one unit, so it goes really straight. And let it roll.
Anne, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back in the studio. I feel like quite the pro now. Anne had some great tips. Speaking of Anne, here she is, our special guest. Glad to have you with us, Anne. How did the women's golf tournament go a few weeks ago at the D1 tournament in Williamsburg?
It was great. The conditions were really tough and so was the field, but we were able to pull through with a good performance and beat a few D1 teams.
That's great to hear. Now we'll head into our head-to-head putting challenge. We'll each take 3 putts and we'll do the best of 3. If we tie, we'll go into sudden death rounds. I'll go first.
Pushed it. You gotta go in the hole.
This one's it.
Oh gosh. That didn't even go on the mat.
All right, final one. Almost.
Almost, you had it.
All right, you're up.
Okay, let me get the balls.
See if you're better than me. The bar is pretty low.
Yep. No.
Not even close.
Closer than you.
You've already beat me.
One more. There's 2.
Looks like you're the winner.
And congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You our master.
Welcome to the club.
But before you head out, we have one question for you. Who is your pick to win the real green jacket?
That's a tough one. The field's looking pretty even and pretty strong, but I'm going to have to stick with my Jordan Spieth from Dallas.
That's great. I love Jordan Spieth. Obviously, that's some pretty sound insight on why he'll win. But hopefully you've had a great season, and good luck with the ODAC tournament coming up. And thank you for coming to the studio. We've had a great time.
Thank you so much.
All right. From the studio, this has been the Triple Threat. Our next segment today is the lunch table. You'll hear NBA playoff predictions from Ian, Lindsay, and Andrew. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Rockbridge Report Sports Talk Show edition. In this show, we'll do commentary in 4 segments. I'm Ian Dartney, host of the lunch table. I'm joined by Andrew Arnold and Lindsay White. For today's main course, we're serving up NBA playoff predictions. Let's get started with everyone's favorite to win it all. Lindsay, I'll let you go first.
All right, I'm going to have to go with the Suns here. Their explosive offense is 3rd in the league, averaging 115 points per game. Devin Booker is averaging 26 points this season, with that number constantly increasing after scoring over 35 points in their last 5 games. Their defense, recently led by Bridges, is holding at 2nd in the league. Their bench is deep with players who can come in and make an impact. Obviously, I can't talk about the Suns without mentioning future Hall of Famer Chris Paul. Paul and Booker are an insane combination in the clutch, and I mean, who doesn't have a bit of a soft spot for Paul? He definitely deserves a championship.
All right, I like that pick. Andrew, what do you think?
Well, I can't disagree that the Suns are a great team. But if they couldn't do it last year, I don't know why they would be able to do it this year. The NBA has been dominated this year by the East, and my pick is the Philadelphia 76ers. Since the All-Star break and the addition of James Harden, the Sixers have 3 players putting up 20-plus points per game. They have Matisse Thybulle, who is an All-NBA defender, Tobias Harris, who has seen less of the ball now with the addition of Harden, but has historically been a number 2 scorer for the team. And I don't think anyone in the league right now has an answer for Joel Embiid. He's simply that dominant. I'll be talking more about him later, but the Sixers have depth too in DeAndre Jordan and Shake Milton. Tyrese Maxey's quickly becoming a star, and they are primed for a deep run this year.
That's a lot of names. I just think the Suns are on a different level than anybody else right now. I'm not entirely sold on the Sixers, especially with Harden's history in the postseason, so I have to go with Lindsay and Phoenix here.
Well, if we want to talk about Harden's history in the postseason, let's talk about Chris Paul's too. Harden has 72 playoff wins, Chris Paul has 65.
It's not about the quantity of the wins to me. It's more about what are you doing in the biggest moments, and Harden, frankly, has fallen short.
You talk about the biggest moments, Chris Paul is the only NBA player all time to lose 4 series after getting a 2-0 lead.
Well, I just told you multiple people that are going to help Chris Paul. He
doesn't
need to be the best player on the team. He just needs to have
He's historically the least clutch player in the playoffs.
He's not carrying the team anymore. I think it's more on Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton.
We'll just have to see if that's enough.
We'll have to move on. I think it's time for our next question. Who do you both think is the most underrated team coming into the playoffs? Andrew, I'll let you take the first stab at it.
Well, the East this year has been dominated by talk of the Nets, the Bucks, the Sixers, etc. The team that everyone has been forgetting about is the Boston Celtics. Out of the All-Star break, they have been superb, 11-3 in the month of March. Jason Tatum has been one of the most dominant offensive players in the league since the All-Star break, averaging 32 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 4.8 assists. Plus, Jaylen Brown is probably one of the most disrespected players in the league. He's averaging 22 points per game. The Celtics have an experienced supporting cast with 6 players averaging 9 or more points. And let's not forget about Marcus Smart dishing out and averaging 6 assists a game. The Celtics are getting hot at the right time, and they're going to be a team to watch out for this playoffs.
The Celtics have certainly been one of the hottest teams in the NBA, but their center and Defensive Player of the Year candidate, Robert Williams, tore his meniscus last week and is supposed to be out for 6 weeks. That could be a huge loss for Boston down the stretch. Lindsay, who is your sleeper team headed into the postseason?
So I'm going to go with an actual sleeper, and I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last season, and sure, they started off this year a bit rocky, but they had multiple injuries, and it seems like they just needed a second to get it together. But now that they're getting healthy, they're playing good basketball, they're winning. This is a team that nobody will want to play. Trae Young is obviously the leader of the team, but he has sharpshooters all around him with Bogdanovich, Herter, Gallinari. Down low, the Hawks have Capella, and he could have John Collins back for the playoffs. So I don't want to root for the Hawks, but I think in this scenario, I have to go with them.
Everyone knows what Trae did in the postseason last year, leading the Hawks past New York and Philly before falling 2 games short of the finals. Atlanta seems to be getting hot at the right time, and with Robert Williams out for the Celtics, I'm going to have to go with Lindsay here. Don't forget about my sleeper. They're merely an 8 seed, so they probably don't have much of a shot. The Brooklyn Nets.
Well, the Brooklyn Nets and the Hawks have the same exact problem. They're not playing defense. The Hawks are allowing 114.8 points per game. That's the most out of any team in the East still in playoff contention. If I'm a team, I would love to be playing the Hawks in this postseason because all you have to do is get stops on defense. You know you're going to score.
The Celtics just lost their best defensive player.
Yeah, they have depth in the team. They have Brad Stevens at the helm. That's the guy I want leading me into the playoffs.
I just don't, even with your best defensive team against the Hawks, I don't know how you would ever be able to stop the shooters that the Hawks have.
And here's the problem with me for a sleeper pick is the Celtics were a 1 seed a week ago. Are they really a sleeper?
They're not.
That's the East. It's been a revolving door all year, and they're an underrated team.
All right, I think we're going to have to move on here. Last question. What player would you want most on your team headed into this postseason? Lindsay?
Okay, I'll take this one. It's Kevin Durant. He's a 2-time Finals MVP. Durant is who every single team should want during the playoffs. He's one of the greatest scorers in NBA history, and in my opinion, he's nearly impossible to guard. Durant wants a title with the Nets, and he's going to be hungry this year to get that. It's going to be hard to stop KD and the Nets, but honestly, KD could be on any team, and it would be hard to stop him no matter what.
KD is definitely one of, if not the best player on the planet right now. Plus, he'll have some weight off his shoulders now that Kyrie is fully back. Andrew, if you're a GM, do you agree KD is the guy you want leading your team in the postseason, or is it somebody else?
Another year, another time, Durant would be the obvious choice. But this year has been the year of the center yet again, with Joel Embiid and Jokic dominating the MVP race, and for me, it's got to be Joel. He's been unstoppable, and he has a lot of ways that he can score. Obviously, you don't want to let him in the paint, but he's a 35% three-point shooter, so you have to play out on him. Then from mid-range, if Joel Embiid's in the high left post, which he often is, he outshoots the league average by 10%. He has the ability to move like no other big man in the league with his size in the paint. He's averaging 30 points a game, 11 rebounds, and 4.2 assists. You can try to foul him, but he shoots 81% from the line. He's a second-team All-NBA defender, so he can do it on both ends. and he is impossible to guard, so you can play him in any system, making him the clear choice.
Both players obviously have the ability to take over a game, but if I'm picking one of them right now, I have to go with KD. He's proven he can get it done in the biggest moments versus Embiid, who has not always showed up with the pressure on. I would love to see him prove me wrong, but until then, I'm taking the best player in the world who has experience in the clutch moments. It's Kevin Durant.
I mean, Kevin Durant might be the best offensive player in the world.
Kevin Durant is the best player in the world right now.
Currently this year, Joel Embiid's matching him on offensive production, and Joel Embiid has 3 all-defense selections. Kevin Durant has none. Joel Embiid's had half the career in terms of years played that Durant has.
Like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Embiid, but I haven't seen him get it done in the postseason like I've seen K do time and time again. And I have to take it.
Yeah, Joel Embiid isn't going to be able to carry this team all the way to the finals. He's not the same type of player as KD, and KD gets it done.
He's not the same type. He's a better player this year. So.
Well, I guess we'll find out soon. That's all we've got for the lunch table. We hope you liked it. Next up, you'll hear some takes on the upcoming MLB season and the end of NCAA March Madness from Jack Squared and Felicity. Thank you for joining us. For Lindsay White and Andrew Arnold, I'm Ian Dardney saying so long.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report Sports Talk Show Edition. This is Jack Squared and Felicity. I'm your host, Felicity Taylor, and here are our 2 experts, the Jacks. You want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Jack Hunter, your Major League Baseball expert.
And I'm Jack Douglas, your expert on college basketball.
Today we're going to talk about our 2 favorite topics happening now in the sports world. Major League Baseball season finally starting and the ending of a crazy NCAA March Madness. The MLB lockout is finally over and the regular season is beginning this week. Jack, is there one team that you have your eyes on as we begin the regular season?
Yeah, Felicity, all eyes were on the world champion Atlanta Braves when Major League Baseball's lockout ended in March. How are they going to retool their roster to make another run? It didn't help that the face of the franchise, Freddie Freeman, was MLB's most coveted free agent coming out of the lockout. But as Braves general manager Alex Anthopoulos has done time and time again, he's made the moves that once again set the Braves up to be a powerhouse in the National League this year. Letting Freddie Freeman walk away and sign with the Dodgers is a bold move, especially considering the Braves fans' last memories of Freeman are him catching a ball at first base to win the Braves' first World Series since 1995. But Anthopoulos made sure he wasn't going to come away with nothing by trading for all-star first baseman Matt Olson. The Braves were able to replace Freeman with a hometown kid entering his prime on an 8-year deal that pays less money than Freeman's contract with the Dodgers. The Braves used that extra money to re-sign the NLCS MVP Eddie Rosario and add 2 pitchers to an already stacked Braves bullpen. One of them, Kenley Jansen, has 350 career saves as he enters his 13th MLB season this year. The other, Colin McHugh, another hometown player, had a 1.55 ERA in 37 appearances for the Rays last year. With Marcell Ozuna and Ronald Acuna Jr. making a return to the field this year, the Braves could be even scarier this year. The road won't be easier. The Dodgers will be hungry for revenge and are coming back stronger themselves, but it'll be hard to get past the reigning world champs this season.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, you're a big Braves fan. How do you feel about that coming into the new season?
Yes, I'm hopeful that they can, come back strong after last year's World Series run. That was super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be exciting to see them get back there.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone does have their eyes on the Braves and the Dodgers. They're ranked 8 and 1 respectively in MLB's preseason power rankings. But Jack, can you give us like an under the radar team headed into the season?
Yeah, Felicity, I'm looking at the Seattle Mariners. They have the longest active postseason drought. The last time they made the playoffs, I was barely alive. But they were a really solid team last year. They won 90 games, and I really love what they did in the offseason. They were on the receiving end of one of the most lopsided trades we saw this offseason, acquiring Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez from the Cincinnati Reds. You talk about Winker, an all-star in his prime, a left-handed bat. He gives the Mariners what they need, which is some firepower in the middle of the lineup. And speaking of firepower, it also doesn't hurt that they acquired the reigning AL Cy Young winner in Robbie Ray, which is going to be necessary in a division where you're going to face a lot of really tough lineups. A lot of people are concerned that they may regress a little bit because they had an amazing 33-19 record in one-run games, which people don't think is sustainable. But I think the talent that they acquired will overcompensate for that expected regression.
Well, my dad's a huge Mariners fan, so I know that he is hoping that you are correct. But on the flip side, who's the team that you think is overrated going into the season?
Yeah, for me, it's the New York Mets. Just like last year, a lot of the fantasy metrics and a lot of the experts are picking the Mets to be champions of the National League East. But I'm always reminded that the Major League Baseball season is a marathon and not a sprint. The Mets, the past few seasons, have not been able to finish the race, and there's no reason to think that they are going to this year. Simply put, on their pitching staff, I think they're going to need 55 to 60 starts combined out of Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer, and it already looks like that is not going to be the case with Jacob deGrom starting the season on the disabled list, out for at least a month with a stress fracture in his right scapula. That's bad news to me. I just don't think they've shown people in the past few years that they've been able to stay healthy or consistent over the stretch of a full 162 games. I don't think that changes this year.
Yeah, well, thank you. First, Jack. Time to switch gears to our other Jack. NCAA March Madness finished up earlier this week with a big win for Kansas. Jack, fill us in on the highlights of the tournament.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Felicity. It was an exciting run for the Kansas Jayhawks. Congrats to Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks on winning the program's 4th national championship title in school history, their first since 2008. UNC was up 16 points at one point in the game, but blew the lead, and the Jayhawks came back in the largest point turnaround difference ever in a national championship game. But the tournament was filled with smaller stories as well. St. Peter's College out of New Jersey made the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2011 and made noise doing it. St. Peter's advanced into the Elite Eight for the first time in school history, and there's no question that the fans had a blast cheering them on. This was the team's first time back in the tournament in over a decade. The number 15 seeded Peacocks' tremendous postseason run began with an 85-79 overtime upset over number 2 seed Kentucky. They garnered a following after beating Murray State and Purdue. Head coach Shaheen Holloway and the Peacocks wreaked havoc in this year's tournament, doing the unexpected. They lost to UNC in the Elite Eight. UNC finished second in the tournament.
They shocked the world. You got guys that's going to be remembered for things that they could tell their kids and grandkids, and it's a story within the story. So I'm super proud of these guys. So they came in and made history, point blank period.
Did you catch some of the tournament or have a favorite game?
Yeah, I caught the St. Peter's games for sure, and I love that because I think that's one of the only times in sports that you get to see a little small school like St. Peter's take down the big dog like Kentucky. You rarely see that, especially in football or professional sports.
Yeah, that was an exciting game.
I always love watching March Madness. I don't catch a lot of games during the regular season, but I always think it's kind of a fun way, go through the unexpected, and I had a lot of fun watching the games.
Me too. I was excited to see my Duke Blue Devils make it so far. The Duke Blue Devils have actually been the other good news of this tournament. Coach K surpassed his 1200th career win mark with the team's win against Michigan State in the second round. They beat Texas Tech and Arkansas along the way. In my mind, freshman forward Paulo Banchero was the star. He led the team in scoring in 3 of the first 4 tournament games. The stage was set for a fairy tale ending, but it didn't go that way. Duke lost to rival UNC 77-81 in what was also Coach K's last game ever. For Coach K, this marks the end of his time at Duke. With it, he leaves a mark on both his own Duke program and the NCAA. 13 Final Four appearances, the most ever. Former Duke guard and assistant John Shire is set to replace Coach K as Duke's head coach next season. I'm really excited to see a Duke team with a guy really analytical like Shire bring new perspective to the program. I think they'll do well.
Well, thank you, Jack. And Jack, that's all Jack Squared has to say, and that's the end of the Rockbridge Report Sports Talk Show edition. For more sports news, you can visit our website at rockbridgereport.wlu.edu. Thanks for joining us.